Poppers, poppers, poppers. Let's talk about poppers. My first exposure to poppers was at the Eagle. For those of you who are familiar with that bar in New York City, infamous bar. Inside the Eagle, I don't know if they still do. This was like, it had to be, let's see, this was when I lived in New York City. So it was at least like 5 years ago. I went to the Eagle and they had a store inside the bar, like a little like hole in the wall where you can find things you normally wouldn't find at an everyday store. So they had poppers, they had like leather type, fetish type outfits. What else did they have? You know, like certain sex toys, if I remember right. Anyway, I remember meeting a guy at that bar who was like, oh yeah, those are poppers, you know what those are? And I wasn't familiar. And he explained that they are this thing that you can legally purchase. I don't know what the actual legal function is for poppers actually, but you can find them however you find them, and it's essentially like a legal drug that you can buy that gives you a quick high, right? You snort it kind of like, you know, how the bad kids in high school would, you know, sniff like a Sharpie or glue or something. It's that kind of idea. You sniff and it gives you a quick high, and a lot of gay guys will do this during or right before sex to kind of boost the libido and I guess like the orgasm and the high of sex. So at that bar, at the Eagle, that guy had me try it. I don't remember, he wasn't a friend, but I feel like he was like a friend of a friend. It wasn't like a total complete stranger where I'm just like experimenting at a bar with a total stranger. But I remember that he was like, do you want to try it? Like I bought some, and I felt like a little something for 5 seconds and then it was gone, and it just wasn't my thing. I didn't like the smell of it. The smell is very distinct, and it's very, you know, it's like one of those polarizing chemical smells. Like you're either gonna love it or hate it, but it's a very chemical, you know, like almost like medicine, right? Like a very distinct, potent odor. In the last 3 or so years, I found that poppers keep coming up when it pertains to sex with other men. Like on apps like Grindr, guys will say looking for fun with poppers. I've had guys that I was interested in that we were talking about potentially hanging out, and they would say, how do you feel about poppers? Like it's become more and more normalized, which I guess you could say about all drugs really. But for me, it's just kind of a strange thing. Like everybody has their things. Some people like to, you know, have fun with recreational drugs, whatever, sure. But for me, there's something about bringing drugs into the bedroom that makes me really uneasy and uncomfortable. And I think it's because I associate drugs with kind of like a break from reality and an escapism. And I feel like sex is already that. And sex is so natural that, like, why would you need to bring an extra thing into it? And I think I also just associate drugs with like impulsive behavior. So that being brought to the equation with sex, just in every way for me personally, is a huge turnoff. And then again, there's that smell, that chemical smell. And I would say like a year ago, I hooked up with a guy who whipped it out without asking me, without me being aware that poppers were going to be present. And again, it's just this thing that guys will sniff. So it's very quick. It's like a 5-second thing. And before I could even react to it, he had already done it. And now he smells like this chemical. And I was so turned off. And I was also just shocked that he did it so casually without asking me or without assuming that I might not be okay with that. So poppers to me is this bizarre thing that has now become synonymous with the gay scene and the gay hookup world. But it's a huge turnoff for me. Like if I'm gonna have sex with someone, I want that to be the basis of the connection. Like I don't want to bring anything outside, whether it's a third person or a drug, or I don't know, maybe I'm very old school that way, but I feel like, shouldn't sex be enough? Shouldn't I be enough? Shouldn't this chemistry be enough? Like, why bring something else into the dynamic? We all have non-negotiables. I mean, there's things about me that I'm sure turn off a lot of guys, but it's just funny how nowadays, as soon as a guy brings up poppers, as soon as I find out that he likes for that to be involved during sex, it just totally, I'm like, oh, what do you guys think about this?